Welcome to my series Practicing with Energy, where you choose which energies you want to connect with. This is number 30 in the series, and today we'll be connecting with Iktómi. This is going to be a little bit different than the other videos, which you can find on the top of my TikTok page in the folders called Practicing with Energies. And the reason why it's going to be a bit different is because he would like to kind of talk about things that people normally would say, not just the Lakota, but also people say in spirituality about gods and energies. So the first one is the Lakota talk about him representing both wisdom and folly. His response was to ask you to challenge yourself when you come across a paradox. In this case of wisdom and folly, he both translates energy that is non-physical and is made of systems and teaches you and shows you through all the typical things in everyday life. So when you get those downloads or breakthroughs, that kind of stuff, it's not going to just be random and you don't know. It's going to be very obvious and it's going to be in your face. Big things that could happen, but normal stuff like a glass of wine spilling, that kind of vibe. This way of explaining things is not for everyone, and he completely understands why people who wouldn't want this kind of thing that he talks about, his people that would be interested in his energy, not all of them would be interested or understand it. It could be very scary to people who have very small POVs and probably cause so much confusion that they will just give up and say this isn't worth it. Which there's a lot of talk about him about that kind of thing, like it's more trouble than it's worth, that kind of thing. And it's not that that's for everyone, and it's fine that it's not for everyone, and he understands this. Number 2, he has control over humans like puppets. Here he understands the sentiment behind the Lakota's POV. And he says this is mainly because the Lakota people that do not like change and things like tradition, tried and true things that work, that they've seen work, their family has worked, will see all these opportunities that keep arising as needing to be controlled and moved forward to bring them to these different places to do this. Whether it's the person that is getting it or the person who is coming to them, they think they're being controlled. So that kind of vibe of being in the right place at the right time, that's kind of what they're seeing. But if you see from Iktómi's original energies POV, which is a large POV that he's kind of translating for us, like all the gods do, you will see that his original energy is made up of systems. It's all the systems that have existed. It's complicated, but bear with me. So understanding that a job role from that energy does have the power to understand and move things around and get your attention at the right time for everyone, not just the person involved that is discussing this. So in a way, he's kind of is moving them by kind of grabbing the carrot and saying what is the best next steps with all those everyday life examples that kind of make you understand where to go next. And he concentrates on paying attention to all the past that need some help, maybe some repairs, and some might need some new little branches off of them. And number 3, the Lakota talks about him having potions to change and manipulate the gods. He says he truly understands this POV as well, because these people who are seeing this or thinking this way with a small POV are seeing people who are paving their own paths, that is getting the help of a god that has all these harmonious ways of, interacting. And since he's working on this, and people that have smaller POVs wouldn't understand that the gods themselves are usually, not all of them, but usually made partially with what the needs of the people. So if he's helping certain people with those needs, wouldn't he then be also helping change the gods as well? He wants us to remember that God job roles are in of itself a system, and there might be a way to efficiently manage and get the most out of a certain energies, what they represent, right? because the energies in a God job role are going to want to do the best they can to achieve the most help for the people, right? So they will be probably wanting to change if there is room to change. So in a way, you could think of him as a consultant in consideration of other gods. He can consult with people about other gods. Not all gods would do this, but apparently he's interested in that. So if you need help with those kind of things, he would help with that. So he says he wouldn't say, like, don't talk to that god. He would probably explain that they come from this original energy, so this is probably the best pathway to interact better. And as you probably know from my other videos, I've talked about how yes, the gods are made that way and culturally and stuff like that, the other things that I've talked about, but also our individual relationships with the gods can also change and be a bit more specific and precise and specialized compared to the typical cliche things that people would talk about normally in books or traditions, because you basically essentially put a tiny piece of you in that interaction. It'll always be that way. And number 4, on calling him a trickster. Firstly, he encourages you to do the list. If you're curious about what the list is, I explain it on the video. If you look down a little bit from this video, saying like an alien class, I go through the list for that alien class to figure out what you think about a term or a topic or things like that. And it is something I talk about in my sessions as well. So if that's not enough, please feel free to book a session with me and we can get really in detail with that and talk more about that. And obviously the title of that list would be, what does a trickster mean to you? What does tricking mean to you? Do both. He actually doesn't like the term trickster because he's not a fan of a small POV, because he comes from a large POV. But he does understand, as usual, why people see things as tricksters. So he is all about huge POVs and he's all about many different options and showing different options in real time. So for him, it's kind of a nightmare, because telling someone they're a trickster and that they're tricking them and doing this and deceiving them, for him, that's like too small-minded. And he's not a fan, but he still understands why people say it. And number 5, he says the Lakota say that he protects them from evil, help them live a better life with technology, and warn of danger. And his response is that he does agree with protection, but he's not interested in the adjective of evil. He says humans came up with this adjective and it keeps them stuck. It keeps them in fear. It keeps them in a lot of stuck places. And because he wants them to live a better life, he wants you to protect yourself with knowledge that's appropriate to the situation and appropriate to you, the individual. He does not encourage group ways of protection. So, lots of TikTok videos that have lots of likes, books, traditions. He's not a fan of that because he doesn't think that everyone is going to be protected from those things. His people, not people who want to go with the flow and stay. He says I should do a separate video about that, where people choose to stay and go with the flow only and not mix it up, and he does it a little bit more extreme, right? He says people coming to him would not need group validation for protection. Although, as usual, he does understand why people need that kind of protection. He actually sees technology as having knowledge and all the systems of your path known. So he sees technology and protection in kind of the same genre as what he does. He kind of feels that kind of vibe. If you do start to talk to him and you want to connect with him, keep in mind that your life will feel like it's falling apart. Because it is. The roughness will depend on the choices you make based on the scenarios that are coming into your path that you make decisions with. But he is helping you break out of the mold. And if this is what you want, this is what he specializes in. And he can navigate all of the best options. But it's not easy. He does agree with me, I told him about this, that it is healthy to have go with the flow and set paths that we have in our life, as well as being very extreme with breaking things down and stuff like that. but he's extreme for a reason, because you're supposed to understand what it is for you. Book a session if you'd like to know more.